multiple students with different needs. And last year we talked about the learner variability, that there is no single brain that is the same. So how do we teach? And I introduced a concept called teaching to the edges, just based on how Jesus taught. He taught to the edges, meaning he went to those who were at the edges of society and he taught them all. And brain research has caught up with that, and we have universal design for learning, where we teach, when you're thinking about your lesson plans, you're thinking about the student that gives you the hardest time or the struggles in your class, and the student who's really, really advanced. You pick those two students in mind when you're preparing it, and if you can meet both their needs, we can meet all our students' needs. And that is what research has shown has surfaced. And we also broke down how to do that practically. So today, those are concepts, those are theories. But to really practice them, it's going to take time. It's going to take our own cognitive brains to retrain, refresh. So I'm grateful for Dolores to invite me back, and because I want to make sure, my goal is that we bring theory into practice, and we want to apply it to our classrooms and figure out what works for us. So I would like to just start with a prayer so that we can just get centered. We can just really invite the wisdom of God. It's not us, but collectively, this is going to be like a coaching lab where we're going to learn from each other. I also, just to introduce myself, I told you I'm Dr. George. I've been in education for over 25 years. Prior to that, I was a missionary in South Asia, and I've been teaching at Cornerstone for 10 years. Before that, I grew up in Chicago, so I taught in the Chicago public schools, and then I also taught here in Michigan. I also want to introduce my co-teacher here. This is Cynthia Brown. She's been in education for 50 years? 45 years. She's retired. She is enjoying her retired life, so she's serving us today. Thank you for driving from Kalamazoo all the way in this weather to be here, and your passion for education is amazing. Let's just give it up. She always wants to serve, and I love that. So I'm going to start with a prayer, and then I'll tell you what we're going to do today. Okay? Let's pray. Holy God, we are so grateful that we get to partner with you to really train each one of the students that you put in our classroom. They are your image bearers. They are the ones that you have created and entrusted to us. And today I pray that we can really learn. Thank you for each one of these teachers who took the time out to show up today, who are eager to learn, who are eager to serve you, eager to learn from you. And I just pray, Father, that you will help us meet each one of our needs so that we can serve better. I pray that your Spirit will lead this session, and I just pray that you guide us and that we can glorify your name with the gift of work that you have given us. I know you have prepared good works for each one of us to do. I pray that we can be attuned with that. I pray we can keep in step with your Spirit. I pray that we can see each learner that you put in our lives as someone that's precious to you, and teach us to think that way. I thank you for this time. I pray this in Okay, if everyone has one of these sheets, our agenda for today. We're just going to, we send out a survey just to find your needs, and I thank you all for participating in that survey. You have about 26 of you participated, and based on your results, 73% of you have applied behavior de-escalation from last time. We really appreciate that. Is a challenge. One of my research topics is teacher efficacy and inclusive education. And the three things that make teachers feel not equipped is behavior, instructional strategies, and the third thing is collaboration. So those are the three things that surface like, those three things are hard for me give me a student who just wants to learn and I can do my job. But what are these three things that is a struggle for me? So behavior de-escalation, we talked about the nervous system and all that last time, and a lot of you are practicing it. I just really appreciate that. 65% of you are already applying differentiation strategies. Small groups, 62% feel like I'm equipped to do that. 58% of you are doing formative. 54% have engagement routines. And then 46 of you are working on that UDL teaching to the edges. So what I want us to do right now is take a moment. Thank you all for putting your name tags on so that I can get to you. As we do partnerships, it's good to know you. And that if any of you would like to host student teachers, let me know. We always need help in that area. So take a moment. I want you to do a thinking time. Which of these strategies feel most natural for you to implement? Which one feels harder to sustain and why? Behavior, differentiation, small groups, formative assessment, engagement routines, and UDL. And for this session is on differentiation. So we're going to focus on the UDL and applying it. So why don't we think about with UDL, which is Universal Design for Learning, can you kind of reflect on what is hard to implement for you? What's hard for you to sustain it? Even if you're like, I really don't remember, I don't know what it is, that's totally fine. You always count, for us to grow, we're just going to meet. You need to know where you're at. You're just going to take one step forward by the end of the session. So take a moment to reflect on UDL, teaching to the edges, which one feels natural for you, and which one's hard to sustain, and why. And then, if you can also turn to the page that has all the 31 strategies I gave you, you can circle the ones that you feel you have in your toolbox, is natural for you. That's probably the way you learn. And then which ones are hard. So those are the first two pages of what we're working on. We're doing the survey results and the review right now. And then when you are done reflecting on your own, you can take a moment and share at your tables. No worries, I'll just yeah. That's totally fine because I printed it. Yes. All right. If you are done to share with people in your table groups, and let's see where we're all at.
Okay, thank you. Dr. George, 140.
Natural
moment to really think about your goals. What do you want to get out of this? We probably have another 30 minutes or less. What do you want to get out of it? Based on the topic of you want to get coached on differentiation. You're thinking about your classroom. You're thinking about the struggles in your classroom. What do you want to get out of this session? Really take a minute to think about that. Part of UDL is having a goal, and engaging your students is knowing what they want to learn. So if you can take a moment to really think about that, after you've thought about that, I want you to be able to share that so that I know it. And I'm going to give you a big chart so we can write it on there.
combine them into one?
Yeah. You can, it's just multiple, no worries. Okay.
So I should say, differentiate
And when you're done, stick it up there.
just right. You can apply it to this. You could do this right. I think it's hysterical that I never see you at church, but you're like, someone sitting next to you, and I'm like, did you tell her I saw it?
Thank you all for thinking about it. First efficiency. Go ahead and put it up there.
I take your pencil. Shall we define it more, like, so that we know what it is? Yes.
Okay. Almost ready here. I really appreciate you guys expressing your goals and needs. This table says, how do we balance the behaviors with a few academic needs and steady?
To
That
take
is such
control.
a big challenge for us to address that because we aren't talking about differentiation.
He is.
We're talking about behavior. So thank you guys for that. Do you want to add to what specifically popped up in your table? Person wants to represent.
What do you would add? Melissa had a very specific example. I have a student who, not diagnosed, but he squawks often. He
Describe squawks.
I would say if we get an average of 10 in, that's a normal day. Some days I feel like it's a million.
then you lose the rest.
Yes.
And then you have to do it again and again. So,
Yes, and that can be exhausting. Okay, thank you for sharing. And,
We have 59 different things.
okay,
Here we're down to 3.
look at the learners here.
Because we have 3 different situations.
Yes,
For me, it was how to, I want to differentiate and use small groups. I love that, I love doing that. But I have a classroom this year that quickly gets dysregulated and is not very independent. So to figure out how to do that.
yes,
And then our 2 pullouts want to know how to use their small groups, pullouts effectively with such a limited time. You gotta get there and do it, and then you only remember next week. And then Fran, as our school subs, who have 3 different, very different roles, wants to know how to take someone else's lesson plans and quickly apply.
okay.
That's good.
Thank you, Fran. Thank you guys for sharing, that's awesome. All right, I'm gonna start with just 2 key ideas. Those are big ideas, but you have to make it personally applicable to yourself. The first, because we are a Christian school, we know that we teach God's image bearers. And I'm sure you've heard that over and over again, but I'm just gonna share my personal life in how my experience with it, because I can totally relate to Melissa, because I've had students that he wasn't exactly blocking, but sometimes he was. Yeah, he was. For my students was just verbally, expressing himself very often, and so every time I moved into independent work, I would have one student who would just shut down. His head is down, no contact, completely disengaged. And then the other student who was like, independent work time thinks it's social life. He didn't really understand that he's got to do work. And my first instinct wasn't like, this is an image mirror of Jesus. Really, we need to accommodate his needs. That wasn't my thought. My first instinct was, oh, the student that put his head down, he's just unmotivated. He's not interested in studying. And mind even went was, maybe his mom didn't put him to bed on time. There was so much of rationale of why he was motivated. And I had another excuse in my mind for the student who was talking a lot. And so, if I'm honest, I took a step back. I was actually very tired. I had these pacing guides in my head. I need to move, I need to get all of this done. I had on my table lots of things I had to grade. And so honestly, I didn't have the emotional margin to work with students and apply all the needs that I needed to. So one thing that I had to really learn to train my brain to think about is, instead of thinking about the problem, think about, okay, what's the barrier for this student? Why is the student experiencing that? And so I decided moving from what's wrong with him to where's the barrier. And when I started thinking that way, the student that was putting his head down, I'm thinking, okay, what's the barrier? So I went and I sat with him and actually found out that he really just didn't know where to start. When it's independent work, he doesn't know how to start. All the other kids have started writing. It was a writing class. So for this particular student, when I started thinking that way, the solution was, hey, let me just give him a sentence starter. It was as simple as that. And that kind of solved him. For the student that was talking a lot, I said, okay, what's the barrier? And what I understood was he actually likes to process it verbally rather than writing. So how can I incorporate that in the classroom before I move into the independent work time? The other problem was he really didn't have the self-regulation skills, because even if I gave him time to talk, transition to writing was a challenge. And so for him particularly, I used to collect these old phones from parents, and I would have him, you know, in a corner and just do text to speech, and that seemed to work, you know. So, but all that to say is, first I had to really have the idea that this is God's image bearer, and where am I at? I wanted to get through the day. I've got 19 students. I want to get this done. A lot of them are getting to work. What are these 2 students? And I had to change that to think about what is the barrier that is holding them back. The second thing, this is what I want to, the second key idea I want you guys to take away is when there's learning breakdown, don't react. Instead, I've given you an acronym, IDEA, which is identify the breakdown, diagnose using evidence, and adjust the design. So there's an acronym, CESS, which is the short form for UDL. Just kind of simplified it. So if you have this sheet, I think I have printed out this sheet for you. I apologize for the PowerPoint, but I think you can look through the sheets. Okay, I'm going to give you this learning simplified, and then we're going to work through a scenario to see if we can apply it. And I want you to be really patient with yourself, because for me to even figure out the barrier part, it took some time because of overwhelm, because of things to do. There's no time. There's so many other things versus how do I think about this one student. But I really, really believe that when you teach to the edges, it does work. Research has proven it over and over and over again, and obviously there's a reason why Jesus took the time out to go to the Samaritan woman, to go to the leper, or to go to those on the edges, or the other advanced edges like the Pharisees, and so we can all learn. Because naturally, it's so much easier to just teach the middle. Those, 17 people who are just doing the work. You two kind of like get with it already. But when I started looking at the barrier and trying to meet them where they're at and planning my lessons based on those two, I was less stressed. I was less irritated. I could actually have the mental capacity to look at those students as image bearers. So I'm going to give you a tool here in Universal Design for Learning Simplified. The purple colors, purple, green, blue, go with the parts of our brain that works. So there are 3 things in UDL: the what of learning, the why of learning, and the how of learning. The what of learning is when you think about the barrier, I want you to think about this 4 CESS. Clarity. Do they really understand? That student that I was sharing about who put his head down, did he really understand what he needed to do? Not really. Even though I did the I do, we do, you do, he didn't still get it. So I had to kind of give him a little bit more support. So that was the first question I had. Did he understand? And so under understand, the purple, you can think about the goal. Did he understand the goal? Every student in this particular classroom needed to know what my goal is. And I know we do our I can, write a paragraph, or I can, in that particular class, it was I can write a 5-paragraph essay. So for my students, he just needed, in that moment, your goal is to just brainstorm. Here's the sentence for your first paragraph. So the goal, the directions, the success criteria. The green part is the engagement. Do they really want to? So for my student who was talking a lot, he didn't really want to. He wanted to go and do something else. And I had to figure out how can I make him want to. And one of the things that he loved to talk about was the zoo. He's just always talking about the animals in the zoo, and that's what he wanted to do. So when you're asking him to do something else, he just, so I had to incorporate, all right, I want you to write an essay. One day you're going to meet this zookeeper who's going to be probably to go into and describe, I mean, he would have details more than I even knew. But he was able to, my goal was I need to get him to write. So he can use the technology, but he wrote about the zoo, you know, so the engagement piece is important. The skill piece is can they actually do it? And then the last is the system supporting it. So that is CESS. So we're going to look at a scenario. On your table, you have a scenario. We only have probably a few minutes left. So look at the scenario. Did everyone get a scenario, a PK3 scenario? Right. Can I? Oh my goodness. We might have to share. I'm just going to read it out loud. Okay. This is a time during centers, several students were wandering instead of working. 2 students in your corner. Think about your class. You're having center time. You have 2 students arguing over materials here. 3 students are frequently asking, what do I do? And 1 student refuses to begin writing. Okay? So you are going to use those, I want you to diagnose first what's lacking in your table groups. Is it, I know on this sheet actually it says engagement. I just made CESS as an acronym for you to remember. So that's why it is clarity, engagement, skill, or structure. What do you think is the issue? And then you're going to try to find the evidence and what can be changed. So at your table groups, I want you to work on this scenario. Does everyone get a scenario, at least 1 or 2 at your table? Okay. Is that extra over here? Thank you. Okay, so I want you to use the UDL to see if you can diagnose what issues. Okay, we only have 5 minutes, I'm sorry, so this has to be really quick. Go ahead, and if you want to, we could do it whole group. What do you think? Would that be better? Because of that time? Yes, let's do that. Take a minute to read the scenario. Okay, so I'm going to do whole group only because we have that time. I apologize for that. So let's look at where is the learning breaking down during centers. Is there clarity? That's C. Does anyone think about, is there clarity in what the students need to do?
Well, at least 3 of them don't have clarity because they're asking what do I do?
Right. Beautiful. So clarity, like you can identify that. So what do you think about the wandering people?
I think there's a lack of structure.
Lack of structure.
And we're not from a lesson into a work time. It's not the routine of the strategy.
Beautiful. Okay. What about the engagement? Beautiful. And then the skill. Is there any breakdown in the skill?
That could be the kid who's not going to start.
Okay. So, right. You guys did a great job diagnosing. So fast, in a minute. Good job, you know, because our brains don't immediately diagnose. We take it like they're the problem. So I think that's the biggest thing I want you to take away is diagnosing it. Then what do you think we can change after you reflect and you feel like, hey, the student, what can I do different in this lesson? What are some things that we can do? Go ahead and go through the bottom part. Look at your worksheet that I gave you, the cheat sheet, to see if there are any strategies that you can use. The cheat sheet is the colored sheet. Once you've diagnosed the clarity, look under clarity. Is there anything we can do different? It is time? Is that the time?
2 more minutes.
Okay. All right, if you look at the sheet here, once you've diagnosed, you can kind of select what can I do different, and then apply that. Okay? That makes sense? two ideas today was really partnering and viewing the students as image bearers and noticing our own responses to those students. And the second part is using the CES, Clarity, Engagement, Skills, Structure system to figure out what can I do different, because the only thing we can control is ourselves. So what can I do different? So I want to go back to our question here, how do we balance the behavior needs of the few with academic needs of many? Think about the CES. Can I, put you on the spot there? It's interesting. You have this particular student. Can we all kind of coach Melissa here? Maybe, does anyone else have the student? Okay, so let's brainstorm together. First of all, we got to decide when there's a behavior, and you said he's not diagnosed. Is this
He has trauma.
okay? So it's a response
I
to
think
trauma.
he has trauma and he's a diagnosis.
Okay, so the
And he's extremely insecure.
okay, so there are multiple needs, and so do you feel like in terms of behavior, this is safe, like is that when it reacts that way? But usually with trauma, people
Sometimes
Sometimes it's like he doesn't have great skills of emotional regulation, so sometimes it's that piece.
okay. Okay, so I'm hearing engagement. You know, I feel like you're probably very clearly explaining what he needs to do. And so looking at, is the system supporting it? And that's where that whole diversity piece comes, and he gets support so that he can work through that. So how do we balance the behavior needs of a few with the academic needs of many? Is we kind of identify what the issue is. And, okay, thank you. It is time to go. Thank you guys. I apologize for not being able to
I just like